My name is Lily Moayeri. I'm one of Festival Advisor's contributors. I'm here with Richie Romero, one of the linchpins of New York City nightlife for the last 30 years, and one of the partners in the city's latest club ventures, Nebula. Richie, thank you so much for joining us.
Really, thank you for having me.
Of course. So you've been in the game for the last 30 years, as I said. What are some of the marked differences you've experienced being a promoter in the 90s through to the 2000s through to today?
A lot of different factors. I always used to say, back in the day when you start in the 90s, the people had to know you more than you had to know the people. The spots, New York was king. Everyone wanted to go to New York. There wasn't really Vegas yet, Miami to a small degree. You didn't have these secondary markets. So New York was the king. So whatever hot spot, you're only as good as your venue, people would reach out. So if I'm at Limelight, I'm at somewhere else, they want to go there. So it was more important for the people to know me than me to know the people. Like today, it's a lot different. You have to take girls out to group dinners. You have to round up everyone. You got to take care of everyone. Then you have to comp everything. It's just not the same, at all. And from the 90s, it was more like early 90s when you talk about the big club environment, people actually mingled. The word mingled is out of our vocabulary now. No one gets to meet each other. Like when you're in there wasn't table service. There wasn't these things. You went to the bar, you would have to talk your game at the bar and actually get to meet people, actually have a conversation. You didn't look at your phones. Most people didn't even have phones. You had beepers. And the other talent is you had to know how to dance. So the word mingle was very important because you were actually mingling people. Then later on, as it was developing, the late 90s going into the early 2000s was more about bottle service took over. And pretty much there wasn't as many venues and then became many venues because every doctor, lawyer, plumber, everyone saw that you could charge, a $30 bottle for $500 and they wanted it in. And table service just changed things. People weren't mingle. People were just, the old, the corny thing. No new friends, you can't sit with us, whatever corny cliches you hear now. That's really what it was about. It was there were like mini clubs within a club. So you go to a lounge, you're at your table. Who else you're probably not even speaking to the table next to you. So you're not actually mingling. You're staying with the same group and you're just in an environment. It's an experiential environment while you're doing your own thing.
Yeah. And you don't ever actually have to get to the dance floor, and nobody's actually dancing anymore, which is such a shame because that's really when you're having the most fun is when you're on the dance floor.
Yeah, that was the biggest key that when Nebula wanted to do was to create. It's kind of a mix of the 90s meets today where we have a dance floor. It's not a huge dance floor, and it's a hybrid between being a nightclub dance club with a bottle service. I am bottle service. So we have tables, a lot of tables all wrapped around, people doing their thing. They're having the thing, but it still engages in mingling. But then you actually have a real true dance floor environment. So you could have the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in New York in the 90s, and I have amazing memories of those experiences. As you know, I've recounted a few of them for you. And you did mention what some of the major changes are in New York nightlife over the years. One of the things is, of course, the bottle service scenario. And of course, there was the politics aspect of it. And Mayor Giuliani at the time just really pushing nightlife or pushing it out and enforcing all these laws to make it really, really difficult to even have any kind of club, any kind of place with a dance floor, any kind of place with music, which you are experiencing many, many times. Tell us a little bit about some of the major changes you've seen in nightlife over the years.
So if you want me to do a timeline, I kind of create a timeline. So like I was saying with the 90s, early 90s, experience. It was different rooms. So each room felt like a different club. If you look at something like even Tunnel, you had like the Kenny Sharp room, Limelight had, we had the Shampoo room, the Chapel, Palladium had the Michael Todd room. So if you're in the main room, you're not feeling that vibe, you went to a totally different room and it was a different crowd. And there was different promoters in each room, different DJs. So you had a different experience. As we were going on after that, you go into, like I was saying, it went more to the bottle service element. And it killed the mingling, like I said. And, it made it more, plus another big factor that came into it was the euro becoming stronger than the dollar. We used to joke around and call all the Europeans, what the hell did we call them? The Blazer Brigade. All the Europeans who came in, and the euro was born. That's where bottle service started. And you went into even simple as that. If in the early 90s you want to go to a dance club, there wasn't bottle service to get in. You had to be handpicked. Door person had to pick you. You had to be on the guest list. And only other way to get in was taking care of the bouncer. And instead of taking care of the bouncer, you eliminate that. That's bottle service, change that. So instead of taking care of bouncer, you were buying bottles to get in. So you're pretty much buying your way in. And then you had a big change also in New York, which was the biggest change that most people don't like to talk about, is 9/11. When 9/11 hit, it made people scared to come to Manhattan. You had warnings, you had yellow, you had orange, you had red, advisories. And you had neighborhoods like Williamsburg, Bushwick, Long Island City Store. Everyone's just started cultivating their own neighborhood. They're like, why do I have to come back to the city? I could just, build, hospitality in the outer boroughs, which is getting stronger and stronger. Right now, most would say, Brooklyn's nightlife is better than Manhattan's nightlife. And then after you went on with that, you had most people, different things. People became more elitist in a way in terms of, being more health conscious, working out, and restaurants really developed. You got to look at something in the 90s and community boards too, which actually a real strong topic. If you look at something in the 90s, if you had a $3 million club across the street, you had maybe a $200,000 apartment. Now, you have a $3 million club, you have a $5-6 million apartment across the street. So the community boards don't want, people outside loitering, making noise and everything outside their places. So that was a big change of it as well. And that's
That's a lot of things working together to kind of push this culture outside of the city, and a city that in the United States has definitely been the forerunner in nightlife, in music, in dance music, in trends, and in culture. Always has been. So it's interesting. Like, we never thought that could ever be taken away from New York. And it really was because of this combination of factors that you're mentioning.
Then you go into a deeper market where New York is itself, the restaurant element, like I was telling you last time on it. Restaurants, when I was going out in the early 90s, you were going out in the early 90s and middle 90s, even late, almost going to the late 90s. There wasn't, actually it was going to late 90s. You went to a restaurant, if it was an Italian restaurant, you had the red and white, tablecloths, or the white tablecloths, pictures of Frank Sinatra on the wall. And you ate till like 10 o'clock. Most restaurants were all closed by 10, not even 11. And then you went out to the club. Once you had places like Tao and other places, they built their places like a bottle service nightclub. There's no difference. You go to a nightclub, you go to a restaurant, it's almost the same layout. You wouldn't even tell the difference. And people started staying later. So instead of 10 o'clock, it went to, 11, 12, 1. And at that point, like I always joke around and say, it's like, hey, you can meet someone at the bar, do your thing, still go home, get late. And then, you're off to Barry's Boot Camp, Soul Cycle, wherever the hell you want to go in the morning. So you could live that life. And then as you were going on later, you saw the middle 2000s, you started seeing Vegas really develop, Miami really develop. And now when you really go into it, in the last like 5-6 years, you have real secondary markets. You have Nashville, you have Austin, you have Atlanta. There's just the secondary markets are better than New York. New York is not king anymore. All the servants and everything else, as you put it, are all now the kings, so the royal family, it's New York's not king.
Yeah. Yet you've stayed in New York. You've not moved to Vegas or Miami or any of those things, as tempting as that might have been for a moment, especially during the pandemic. Your focus has always been on the city, including now with Nebula. What's your goal with Nebula? Why do you feel like it would click with nightlife connoisseurs at this point in time?
Big thing is where pretty much everyone's doing the same thing in Manhattan, and we want to do a change. So most of the music that went to Brooklyn became more deep house, tech house, and we want to kind of provide the tech house, deep house element, where you don't have to go and spend, $180 going back and forth on an Uber, and you could stay in Manhattan if you like that music and everything, and you could still and mix that with the high end bottle service, mix with the music appreciation. So that's pretty much our goal: state of the art light, sound. Like I said, I've never seen anything like it. What we did in terms of the moving ceiling, our LED screens, everything. It's, we have the largest LED screen in the East Coast. No one's seen moving ceilings like we're doing. So we want to give an experiential vibe with that you don't have to go to Brooklyn. So you're getting state of the art stuff. You don't have to go to a warehouse, and you can actually be in a true nightlife with state of the art stuff with music you don't have to just go to Brooklyn to hear.
Yeah. You gave me some mind-blowing descriptions of the club when we spoke before. Describe some of those special features, like talk a little bit more about the moving ceilings. How do they move? What happens when they move? And you were talking about some smaller rooms you have where you can have a smaller experience if you want, yet that taps into the larger room, or you can have your own club within the club kind of thing that's private. Or some of those other things that Nebula has.
So we have it on pods. We have LED screens, large LED screens on 6 pods on the ceiling. So we could literally bring the pods all the way down to the floor. You can make the room, like if you want more of like a base, Brooklyn basement vibe, we could bring down the ceilings to about like 9 feet. So you feel like you're in a basement ceiling. They move, different lights and experiences go on it. It's definitely something no one's ever seen. I still see people every time they come out, they're recording it and they're just mesmerized by our lights, our sound, or the moving ceiling is pretty crazy.
Wow. What about the smaller rooms?
So the smaller rooms, which really come into play, especially with COVID going on, where, some people don't want to be in big crowded rooms. So like there is, they call it for dining, I've always been in restaurants as well. PDR, which is private dining rooms. I joke around and call it PCR, private club rooms, not like the PCR test. And thing we have there is we have 3 different rooms. They have different names and everything. We're actually we're launching in February. We're actually finalizing the names and everything now. Each has its own size. They all have its own lighting and sound. You could patch in upstairs sound and pipe it in and still hear that. But you could also give it your own effect. You could actually even do karaoke. You could, it has its own bathroom. All our toilets are all heated seats. The women love it. I never heard so many women tell me how much they love the bathrooms. That's like the first time. It's like, oh my God, you got the heated seats. But it gives effect. One of the rooms holds about 25, 30 people. The other one's about 15, 20, and the other one's about 10 to 15.
Right, really private then. I thought it would be a little bit bigger. I love it that it's that small, because it does make people feel confident being there without
make it a cool effect. Like where some nights we're going to have it that we're going to keep the doors open and maybe throw a DJ in the hallway and just have people walk between the rooms and everything.
Yeah. It reminds me of the old days when we kept on discovering new and new rooms in these spaces that were divided. So you have a lot of amazing talent coming through the club. Do you want to run those down for us?
Yeah, so February is a really, really big month and everything. We got February 9th. Sorry, apologies. Can you rewind that again, Dave? Seriously.
We're almost done. We're almost done. This is the last question, and then I'm going to wrap it.
Apologize. Yeah.
No, it's not a problem. Yeah. So who do you have coming through the club?
So February is a great month. Just for Fashion Week alone, for February 10th, we got Luciano. February 11th, the Friday, we got Marco Carolla. February 12th, we have RL Grime. The week after, we have February 18th, we have Damian Lazarus on that Friday. February 19th, we have Lee Burge. And February 25th, we have Loco Dice. And we're going to announce 26 soon. It's still being finalized. And we also have, I don't know if you're familiar with it, we have Tuesday Baby Tuesday, which is a long running, that's been actually running for 29 years. Actually, I think now it's 2022, it might be its 30th year right now. And we'll be launching that next week. Yeah. And excited about that. It's, it would give more of an industry feel. It'll be the one night you could go to where it's not house music. It's a mix of everything. It's open format. hip hop, house, rock and roll, 80s, make it real fun. And, you know, people that are working in the industry Friday and Saturday could come on Tuesday.
I remember that very well from back in the day. Those names you mentioned, I don't know last time they played in the city, you know, like maybe in a festival nearby or something, or their own stuff nearby, but those names, they don't come through Manhattan. And so it's really, really exciting for people
Really
to.
special. And most of if they do, they definitely don't come to Manhattan. They're all in Brooklyn.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Richie, thank you so much for giving us your time, and looking forward to seeing you on the dance floor.
Thank you. You too.
Hey Insiders, thanks for watching this video. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel, or feel free to check out our recommended videos. Thanks for watching.